Somebody can go.
Janita's still up there?
She made the door. Might be.
All right, you guys are live, yeah.
Okay. We are convening, calling to order a meeting of the Police Policy Committee, normally scheduled for Wednesday. We moved it up because of the holiday. It is June 17th, 2024, 5:30 p.m. Welcome. I think we might have somebody who's just coming up, but we will get started. Commissioner Benito.
Present.
And I am Commissioner Van Leer. I am present. So any questions on the agenda?
No.
No. Okay. If Commissioner Early walks in, we'll just loop him in. So no public comment, old business, work group updates. So surveillance technology, we had a meeting on Friday. It's productive. I'm going to be sitting down with one of the members of that group to work through the camera systems this week, and we'll hopefully have something to move forward with that pretty soon after. We'll bring that to the committee as soon as we can. Similar with automatic license plate readers, I think that'll be early July before we get a copy of that. So that's that. Drones, we don't have a policy yet. Our understanding is that Sergeant Graham from the division has been tasked with that, being slowed down to some degree by the cyber attack on the city. And also with FUSIS, we just need to start moving that forward at some point this year. We have a divisional notice. We need to get that work going. Once we get through, I think with the surveillance technology work, once we get through the camera systems, ALPR, then we'll be able to start focusing on the drones and FUSIS more, I would hope. Jason, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope.
Okay. There you go. Any questions? Okey-doke. Vehicle pursuit investigation team.
So in our last meeting, we had scheduled the pursuit event for June 20th. That is not happening because we are hoping to have it in Councilman Forensics District, but there were already a lot of events happening that night. So we are in the process of trying to get that event rescheduled, and we are also in the process of getting members together for that. The idea was to have the group meet after the event because we'll be soliciting a lot of community feedback at that event. But so hopefully that event should be happening sometime in the next 4 weeks.
So by mid-July, basically. By mid-July or so. Okay. All right. Bias-free policing. That is also with the training committee. Well, and I know she knows this, but it's giving me what?
I'm not on that.
Oh, okay, right. But I thought you knew about it. Okay. We were going to do a joint. Okay.
Well, I mean, I know the plan was to have a joint work group between the training committee and the policy committee. I believe the members from the training committee are Charles and Adriana. And that's all I know.
All right. I will reach out to Charles. Is now the chair of training, right? I will reach out to Charles. Okay. Travel and training requests. This is the.
So the training committee took a look at this and made some edits to the language based on meetings with Commander McGruth and Lieutenant Smith from the training section. Kind of the big picture changes are that the request for training will through Blue Team. What?
It's close
I
enough.
don't know why I can't retain that in my head. But well, the request will be sent to Blue Team. It will go to the training division. And they will, at that point, do a kind of precursory check of the organization that they're requesting training from, make sure that nothing's coming up as anything that could be problematic about that organization. And then based on that, then they would make a recommendation to the chief to approve or not to approve that training. And then we added some language. And then also every year the training committee will audit that process to make sure that they are indeed, doing the search and double checking it. Then also there is an acknowledgement that officers will have to put in blue team that,
Sorry.
oh, that's okay, that acknowledges that regardless of what is said or taught during a training, that they are still needing to adhere to the training of the training and GP policies of the division, the Cleveland division. And then afterwards, they will also do complete an evaluation that will kind of go over what was good about the training, how effective it was, if there were any conflicts with the divisional policies and training. And then that information will be used by the training section to determine whether maybe they should look at bringing that organization or trainers in to do some training internally, and also flag if there are trainings that might be conflicting with divisional policies. And so they will fill that out. So to go over just kind of, I would like to read the language just one more time that we added just to make sure that everyone's okay with it. So the first change is on page 1 and is under section 2, section 2A, and it's number 4. And it says that travel/training requests will be routed to the training section for a background review of the training organization, including the organization's website, media coverage, and any training materials available. The training section shall make a recommendation for approval or denial based on this review. And then number 5, the training section shall maintain and regularly update a list of disapproved training courses and providers. This list will be referenced during the vetting process to ensure compliance with division standards. So if in the search under one of the requested training, if they come across an organization that they find that there's something concerning, then they would look into it and then potentially add it to a list. And then probably a divisional notice would be sent out, similarly to the one that came out around Street Cop. The next section is under section 3, member responsibilities. And this is B, part B. And it says that members acknowledge that regardless of the training received, they shall adhere to all division policies and training standards. Submission of a training request serves as acknowledgement of this requirement. This standard applies to all trainings regardless of whether they were approved by or paid for by the Cleveland Division of Police. And this just acknowledges that, they're only submitting this request if they're taking the training on work time or asking the division to pay for the training. Officers, if on their own free time, if they're taking a training and if they're paying for it themselves, then they're not going to be necessarily submitting a request form. And so that's there's kind of the catch-all for that. And then the last section is on page 7, which is the last page, and it's under section 5, training documentation. And it's section B. It says, upon completion of the training, officers shall complete a training evaluation form that covers the following: company, instructor name, title of training, date of training, length of training, effectiveness of the training, summary of training content, whether they would recommend other officers to take the training, and whether training conflicted with divisional policies and training. And that's all the changes.
So it looks like, were these all simple additions? I mean, or did they replace other language that was there before? Like these were all additional language, looks like.
I don't believe we took out any language. It was
Okay.
just the addition of some language.
Okay. I don't see any issues with it. I know, and you've worked with Commander Magoo on this, right?
And Lieutenant Smith, yeah.
Lieutenant Smith, okay.
And Lieutenant Smith was there with us when we were crafting this language and also gave some input, so they were both really helpful.
And so in the event of another street cop kind of situation, how would you say that this would be different? Like, how would this prevent that, or is it, obviously you can't prevent everything, but how is this improve the policy from your perspective?
So I'm not sure, because what happened with Street Cop was it was at a conference of theirs. I don't know if there was press about them prior to the conference. So in some ways, I don't know if it would prevent that, but it would at least ensure that if there were things coming out about a training organization, such as came out about Street Cop, then that would be caught before an officer was sent to the training. It would be caught when they made the request. The other thing that it does creates a clear vetting. It creates a vetting process. It also makes it so that the training division has eyes on the different trainings that officers are requesting. And that has been something that I think the DOJ and the monitoring team has been asking about, having a process that addresses that. So it also addresses that need. And then it also they create the list that then they will maintain and review and check in on. And it also creates a process that the training committee can review. So I don't know that it would have necessarily prevented what happened to Street Cop, but I think that it makes sure that Street Cop, that incident had pretty major media coverage. And I think that part of what this will do is, even if something doesn't get the massive media coverage that event did, that then it would still be caught.
Any questions?
I think, so to the chair, I think this conversation came up like a while ago in training. We were talking about making a list. And we had some questions about like how trainings are vetted and things like that for officers. So I think, like, to Commissioner Butler's question, potentially it could have like stopped them from actually going there in the first place. So but yeah, I think this has been like a ongoing conversation that I remember having when I was on the training committee.
Okay, one other question. The training documentation at the end, section 5. Is there actually already a training evaluation form, or does that still need to be created? Or
It will need to be created.
okay.
And I believe it would also be in Blue Team. And it's my understanding that the division would then be the one to create that.
Yes.
GRC.
Hmm?
GRC.
Will we want to get a look at that evaluation form before it goes into place? Or?
I think that we pretty much laid out all the things that we're expecting to be on it, but that's something we could ask for when we do that first review, or kind of first audit. We could also look at those.
Right. Right. All right. I have no further questions.
Depending on, I think depending on like where it kind of goes through, it's like both committees are kind of working together on it. At a certain point, the commission is going to have to pass it through committee and pass it.
Yeah, we could pass it right now.
Yeah, we should pass it right now unless there's a reason not to. Is this so training?
Training passed it
they passed it.
and
Okay.
sent it
And then
to
we should-
policy.
I'll make a motion that we pass this and send it to the full commission.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay.
So
What's that?
I'm just going to keep a update for the agenda.
I put it on there.
Okay. Great. All right. So moving on. I don't think we're going to have anything on these other issues. Police evaluations and hiring. We do not have anything related to performance evaluation manuals and forms. That's with the that other committee, and as far as we know, I mean, my last email to Commissioner Rodriguez was that it's not happening just yet. And similarly with corrective action and matrix, Commissioner Early is taking the lead on that. He's not here tonight, but he does have a meeting with you all tomorrow. Okay. And the manual rules. Where are we at with manual rules?
The manual rules sits here. The accountability had it, but, so it either can be here or back in accountability to be finished.
So, Martin, I think, is still making edits of that.
Yes, he does have some outstanding questions on it,
Yeah.
but when those questions are done, will it come back here or go back to accountability?
It will come back here.
Okay.
Okay. So who's interacting with Martin on this? Is that
I can.
you? Okay. All right,
I'll follow up with Martin tomorrow.
great.
And just so you know, I was actually going to follow up with Commissioner Rodriguez about the performance evaluation
Great.
manual as well. So I'll give you an update on that when I get one.
Okay. All right. All right, we are moving quickly here. Use of force reporting. That was the question we need to talk about
That was
the change that's proposed around the, what's the language? Blow to the head. So Captain Simon is here.
so this was the divisional notice that they had sent for
Yeah.
consideration. It's not a GPO.
Sorry.
It is a DN regarding where the cutoff is for certain level group 3 use of force and group 2 use of force, correct? So level 3 and level 2, in the DN there's some things that may be level 3. The DN is now saying they should go to level 2 under certain circumstances, and the force investigation team would not respond to those, correct? In the DN.
That's basically it.
Basically, if there's anything you want to add, that was me paraphrasing.
Yeah.
We have a copy of it, yeah. But
Yeah, I'll resend it. It's been.
Yeah, if I may, just really quick in way of explanation. Our use of force is really defined by pain, complaints of pain, injury, serious injury, as far as the levels of force.
Now I remember this too.
Yeah, and a strike to the head is not necessarily going to cause serious injury, which would be a level 3. As long as you're not, I mean, obviously if it's a hard object, that's immediately a level 3, no question. But honestly, if you hit somebody in the head with your hand, you're more likely to break your hand than anything on their head. Superintendent Violent had mentioned it, the possibility of, because our use of force is defined by the level of injury, we should define that by the level of injury. And that was the reason behind the DN.
So the language in the DN, are you reading it?
I'm gonna.
Yeah, we have it.
I have it,
Oh,
yeah.
you do? Okay,
We both
well,
have it.
I'm sending it again.
So yeah, so essentially what was just said, but all closed fist strikes to the head will not automatically be considered level 3 use of force. In addition to circumstances that constitute level 3 use of force, supervisors shall consider visible and or complaints of injury.
So to clarify, if there's a closed fist strike to the head and the person has a visible injury on their head, that would still be considered a level 3 use of force.
Yes, if there's a complaint of injury.
Complaint of injury versus
Well,
visible
an
injury.
actual
There's two
injury,
different things.
Or-
no,
Either.
it would be an actual injury.
So if someone says my head hurts, or it says I'm dizzy, would that?
I'll be honest with you, every supervisor in the division is gonna look at that, they're gonna wanna call it a level 3, they're gonna call the superintendent and check. But it would be based on the level of injury. So if there's an inadvertent strike, I've got a bloody lip, that's not a serious injury, that may be considered a level 2. However, the strike to the face, you're looking at potential broken orbital, that's obviously going to be serious physical injury and would automatically be a level 3.
So was there, I mean, what is leading to this desire to change this, I guess?
Well,
because,
there was some, and this is all, the policy has never changed. The policy has remained the same. It was a matter of interpretation by internal affairs. The previous internal affairs superintendent had believed that that should automatically be a level 3, whereas Superintendent Violent makes very well reasoned arguments as to why it should not automatically be a level 3.
I guess the only question I remember we had in the conversation where we had a meeting to discuss what was going to be on this agenda is why isn't this just being proposed as a policy change? So why is something that affects policy going to the DN instead of being a change to the
Are you
GPO?
right?
But the camera's right there, it should hear me.
And that's simply, as I mentioned, we have not changed the policy. It's been a matter of interpretation of that policy, which a strict interpretation of level 2 versus level 3 would be based on the injury caused.
But it seems like we need to look at the policy more in depth and just really, because I'm thinking about, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but the sort of interpretation piece, I think, I don't have it in front of me, the policy, and it's probably my bad. We talked about this last week, and I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I feel like we need to look at whatever's existing in the policy and then how this would change the interpretation, what that means in the context of the policy, right?
Well, the only thing I would say is when we passed the motion to have DNs to look at DNs through this commission under certain circumstances, this certainly falls in that.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that we discussed doing that is because a lot of times you tweak policy through the DN when actually you should change the policy. So the question for the commission that I would advise to research is, if it's unclear in the policy, why aren't we just clarifying it in the policy? So the idea of, well, it's open to interpretation, what's a 3 and what's a 2, maybe the right answer here is to just go fix the policy so there is no more subjectivity in between what a 3 and a 2 is. So you say, we've learned through real world examples, right? You take it to the policy committee and you say, we've learned through real world examples that most closed fist strikes to the head should be level 2 for this reason, and you make the argument to change the policy to say that. So I think the only concern here is why a DN, and then if it's a DN, does it also skirt the consent decree process? I think that's a valid question too, is I think this is something the DOJ would want to comment on, and I think that they wouldn't look at it if it's a DN because it slides under the court system, maybe. So if it was a policy change, it would have to go through that whole court approval. A DN does not. So I do have a concern that I would bring to the commission about why are we doing this through a DN instead of a policy?
The only thing I would say to that is the division historically uses divisional notices in lieu of policy change because policy change takes considerably longer to accomplish. So we use a DN, it's a temporary order. If you look at the definition of a divisional notice, it's a temporary order until we can get that policy changed. And now that we do run everything through the Department of Justice and the monitoring team, that only adds to the amount of time it takes to get those approved.
I guess the question I would have for the commissioners then to consider is, what is the need to not go through that longer process of discussing this? Is there immediate operational need that the division is saying, this is such an issue for us right now that we need to change it immediately effective tomorrow through a DN versus waiting it out through that policy change? So what is the immediate operational need right now to make it a DN that's stopping people from doing their job or having people do it incorrectly might be some examples, right? So what is that immediate operational need? I understand the DNs, if it's something pressing, but this doesn't seem to be an issue that's pressing. It seems an issue that has been festering for years on what is what. And, if we don't have any concrete examples of case studies to show, fist strikes, how many we have, what is the data on that, how many of them would have been group 2s versus group 3s, it's a little hard to make a decision based on without the data of how many of these there are every year, how much of an inconvenience is it for the fit team to go out because the majority of them are or are not. So there's a lot of questions still.
And unfortunately, I'm not in a position to answer all of those questions. The recommendation was made and
Yeah,
followed.
we can't do it tonight. I mean, I think we just need to dig into it a little bit and sort of look at how do we manage this. So we'll be in touch. We'll look at the policy that currently exists. We'll, if we can reach out to you and figure out who we need to have in the room, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the nature of the change, looking at use of force. I think that's such a foundational piece of why this commission and why the consent decree exists, right? So I think we need to be real careful and really dig into it more. So, okay, that's great. Appreciate your update.
And if you have any data like on these or case studies for where that cutoff was at already closed cases, where fit shouldn't have come out, and this is your reasoning why the change, it would be helpful. Because clearly, it's Superintendent Milan sees a need for this, but I don't think just the need part didn't come with the DN. It's just the DN, right? He's not showing why it's operationally something that would be helpful, to reduce resources, man hours, whatever, right? So a little bit of articulation with that would probably help move this faster,
Yeah.
I think one thing for me too, in looking at the use of force policy, is it sounds like what you're saying with part of why you guys are doing the DN is that right now, how close fist strikes to the head are being interpreted is varying pretty widely among different people, but looking at the different sections of the use of force policy, I mean, I also think that saying that it shall not automatically be considered, I actually feel like it's just going to lead to greater uncertainty rather than like if it already doesn't seem to be very uniform. I'm not seeing how this DN is going to make it more uniform.
And again, I don't have all the information that was behind why this was, but the definitions themselves have never changed. So that was when I looked at it, that's kind of what, I mean, obviously if you use a hard object that's specifically listed, that is a level 3. So.
Who would we need to have answer these questions? Is that the Superintendent Valon needs to come in and talk about this more? Who is the point person that would be the most knowledgeable on this specific? Is there someone from the FIT that can come talk about this, or?
I would have to check with Superintendent Violent and see who he would think.
Okay.
Well, and I'm not seeing anything in the GPO that actually says in the use of force GPO that says anything about a hard object. So I think that all of that, to me, definitely.
That would not be in the definitions. It would be under use of force prohibited.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on and we'll continue to work on that. Arrestee restraint transport supervision 3.01.01. That Yeah, you were gonna look at that,
Yeah,
Jason.
so
It's a lot of about, for example, handcuffing pregnant females and postpartum
Yeah.
females.
I did take a look at it, and for this one, there is no quick and easy fast track for this. There's so much change in it. So there was two types of changes. There was what they called substantial change, which is in red italics in that, and there was a lot of substantial change, and then there was also the just what's classified as regular change. But there was a ton of new language in that, so that is worth probably a few commissioners getting together, really taking a look at it, especially because it's been a while since I've done, hands-on tactical restraint training. I'm years off the street, so I don't know what the best practices are for pregnant females and things like that to run this against. So we would probably need to put this with a few people, and staff we can help quickly assess, what are these changes and what are the impacts and are they comport with best practices? Because there was just too much there to find a way to move it through quickly with just a few recommendations from the ED. So
Yeah, it's like the pregnant and postpartum females, procedures for handcuffing behind the back, multiple handcuffs, and then children, juvenile arrestees.
And so the other thing too was about there was some stuff that went back to concerns for Commissioner Garrett Ferguson had raised concerns about handcuffing of young black females. So I think some of these changes are coming out of that because there was that monitor investigation when we had interim monitor Dr. Hardaway, and during that time there were some noted possible policy violations regarding handcuffing of juveniles, especially very young people. So this is worth looking at all that in context, I think, just for a minute. I'm not saying slow it up forever, but hopefully get some people on it and then be prepared to pass this in July would be a reasonable timeline. Because I don't think it's overly complex. We just need to gauge, get some more feedback on it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any more questions on that?
No, one thing that I would like for us to look at when we go a little bit more into it is, in addition to saying persons with disabilities, I think giving special attention to deaf and hard of hearing people. And so I think that there's kind of two things to consider under disability. Is one is people with physical disabilities who might, have a physical constraint, and then also people who are deaf and hard of hearing who handcuffing behind the back could prevent them from being able to communicate. So.
Is there a section in here? I'm sorry, in terms of the disability piece, is there a particular place where that's going to fit in here, or is it?
It just says it just adds that exceptions may be added for number 4, persons with disabilities.
Yeah, I see.
But one thing that I've seen some police departments do is that when they if they have to handcuff someone who's deaf or hard of hearing, they handcuff them to the front so that they can still sign a little bit.
Yeah, and that would be one of the things I noticed is they are definitely emphasizing in this policy, do not handcuff in the front because it's just there's too many problems with it in general. So, and that's a particular officer safety issue. So that one would be one of the things where we'd have to research, what the best practice actually is for certain circumstances with injuries or disabilities or whatever it may be. And ADA, I'm sure ADA has a whole,
Yeah, and we could also reach out to the deaf center to talk to them about it as well.
That's helpful.
And then, well, there's only 2 of you left here right now, and so before we just table this, do you want to just me, you and Ryan can sit down and just go through this? Okay. All right.
Great. Okay.
That would help fast track it if we just know who's gonna.
It would be interesting, I think. I mean, you mentioned Commissioner Garrett Ferguson, but also Professor Hardaway. I don't know, but people like out in the community, and Professor Hardaway is formerly with the monitoring team, and her view on it might be interesting, and see who else we should talk to.
I can reach out to some people in the kind
Yeah,
of reproductive justice also world and talk to them. And, so yeah.
Sure.
So let's we'll get something on the calendar.
Okay.
The request for a copy of Bureau of Communications recording.
So this one I did review, and this is a very routine, I would say, GPO. It has to do with all internal requests, right? So if you're a police officer or a detective or an investigator, or whatever you may be internally, and you want a copy of something from the dispatch center, right, to help you with your case, this is simply a GPO that prescribes a process for how to do that and has a form attached to it. I saw zero concerns with moving this forward, other than the division is still using compact discs. I don't know anyone that even has compact disc players anymore, but beyond that, I mean, in their computers. So to get computer data, not the musical kind of compact discs. I still have a basement full of those, but most computers don't even have use that as a media. It's all flash drive based now. So but that's a logistical thing that they'll have to work around. So, maybe they'll just keep a few of their old computers handy to handle that. But beyond that, I recommend that we move this one forward and not hold it up at all, because there's really nothing in there that's of concern to us or relates to the consent decree that would require an extra component of scrutiny.
Yeah, I've looked it over. I don't have any other questions about it myself.
Me neither. I thought it.
Seems pretty straightforward. Okay.
I like the idea of the police department having like a room with a couple old computers that they then plug all their CDs into. I hope specifically that it's one of the old Macs that had the color see-through. Okay, sorry. I'll get back to serious business of what we're doing, but I'll move to approve the request for a copy of Bureau Communications recordings to the full commission for approval.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Okay. Well, it would probably be better for protection from cyber attacks.
Listen, those young kids may not be able to get in there with the CD. Those CDs are older than them.
Okay. All right, and the final social media policy and usage. Jason and I had a good conversation with somebody about that and got a lot of notes. We just have to go through it. So we don't have it ready yet, but we will look at that.
Yeah, and there's a chance we could move that forward in July too, I think, based on all that feedback we got. So.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Has that been sent to all of us? I don't think I saw that.
Really? Yeah, at some point it was. I thought.
Yeah, I forward them all, so it
Yeah.
should be.
And I apologize for not doing a better job of doing it for this meeting, like putting everything in one place. I'll work on that because there's a lot here that
Yeah, I can't.
different places. But we'll send that to you.
I'll find it here.
So, all right. Well, that is our agenda. Is there? Oh, wait. One other thing that we forgot to talk about at the beginning was old business, the ShotSpotter piece.
Oh yeah, so
We should talk about that.
Well, we could read what
Let's do that right now.
Captain Simon can
Sorry about
elaborate
that.
on
Yeah.
what their response was to that.
Let me hold on one sec. Let
I don't
me.
actually have it in front of me.
I can print you one, or I can pull it up here. So.
We I don't think we sent that to you. That you just sent us that on Friday.
You sent it.
No, I did not. Captain Simon sent it to Jason and me on Friday.
All right, so I'm going to forward this to you right now. And you sent this on 6/14 at 9:49, right? Correct,
two different emails, right? Or is it just the one?
Should just be the one.
Sorry about that.
And it's an edited version, right?
Yeah, there's some edits in it, I believe. No,
Oh, there were two attachments.
yeah,
One so you could see what I changed, and the
Oh, the
other
one
just to
check.
make it easier to read.
no, this is ShotSpotter.
Oh,
So, I sent you the one, I think that's the right one.
For some reason mine doesn't have the attachments.
Yeah, there was something about the attachments that hadn't been. This is the definitions, field investigations. Oh, I'm sorry, this is,
Let's see. Warning peak based on our, okay, here it is. To Sean Burley.
I'm looking at those emails, this current email setup is not helpful.
So the email says, let me bring it over here. Let's confirm with the author himself there. Is that that's the right one, right?
I don't see the edits in there.
I'm not seeing any.
Yeah, that's it. That's my email.
I saw it the other day and now I'm,
What date was that, Jason?
It's from 6/14. I just forwarded it to you, so it should be on your top of your email now.
yeah, no, I saw it, but it's not,
Oh, it's coming up once you open it.
that would be it.
And my Word is not opening it. I'm trying to see. So just to set the premise, Pete,
Yes,
we can,
let's see it
we
now.
can just talk about it in general.
Yeah.
The conversation at a meeting following up on the gunshot detection 5.08.04 was the division had stated to us verbally that they're unable to comply with language that we had put in section 5, which is errors, and section 6, which is data. And that had to do with sending emails and reports, which are internal to the CPC. They were stating they're not able to do it the way we described it in the GPO, and they're requesting that they not send those. And there's some specific edits that were made to that in here related to that. I will say from the standpoint of how that was worded, that was kind of added on the fly at a full commission meeting without much discussion or any discussion, quite frankly, with staff about receiving those emails. I am not in favor of receiving those emails automatically to my inbox as the executive director. I just don't feel that it's necessary for us to immediately know in real time every time there's a ShotSpotter error. I do agree that we should look at the data, but I'm not certain we need to be overwhelmed with just constant updates on if there was a false positive ShotSpotter in real time. So we can ask for regular monthly updates. We can get every quarter get a printout, whatever we want to do. But I just don't think real time adding us logistically makes a lot of sense because there's nobody here like processing or analyzing that in real time. So
I think this was discussed at a policy meeting.
It
I remember, yeah, we did talk about it and we had questions about whether it made sense to include the police commission, and at that moment there wasn't a big argument about it. So, but I can see the point here of not doing it in real time. Is that what you yeah.
I think quarterly makes sense, receiving a quarterly report.
Yeah, I mean, we can even we can just ask for those or meet with them quarterly. Like, we don't even have to put it in the policy that way. I mean, the data is the data. It's accessible through a request like anything else. And I think they covered how they document the errors. So if we do have a need to look into that, we can certainly do it. But I don't, right now, my stance is we don't have an open project on this. We are not currently auditing ShotSpotter. We don't have a work group assigned to it. So it's just collecting stuff that we're not utilizing in any way. And it's logistically adding a burden on the division to remember to include us every time that happens.
I mean,
So
we could also consider like both options. We could do maybe like a quarterly report of something like that, but then like we did with the budgeted grants where we just had an email address that was set up strictly to deal with grants. So there could be additional email address set up for the commission that where they could just dump the stuff, and then if we needed to do an audit or review it, it would just be there. I'm just throwing that out as like another
I think
potential
that
possibility.
if we're not actively using it, I don't think it makes sense to put that burden on the division to send it to us every single time. If that changes, I think we could make a request to them to, like, I don't think it needs to be in the GPO.
And what I've done with the revisions that I sent to you guys was not only are they sending the errors to the program manager, but they're going to send them to the commander of the Bureau of Compliance, who we interact all the time. So whatever you need, shoot me an email, shoot Commander Carr an email. We'll have it. We can send it to you. It takes out of Jason's email box and puts it in Commander Carney's.
Since he's not here to defend himself right now, more emails for Crockett.
Okay. So, you feel comfortable with the language that's in here?
I
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we pass this as, well, there's actually, I saw a typo or two, but we can fix that. There's,
There's 2 changes,
yeah, I know.
or a couple more.
typos, I think, always have the right to be fixed. No one
Yeah.
holds people to typos.
Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, I think it's fine. No, actually, I was misreading something. It was, in the other version, it looked different. So, all right, yeah, so I'll make a motion that we pass this as it is with the revisions from the division.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, pass.
Did you say aye?
Aye, yes, I meant aye. I approve. So that's, this is passed, and we will take this up at the next full commission meeting. Add it to the agenda.
Put it on right now. We have no public here to comment.
No, there are not. Okay,
So just if we just take 1 second to give a rundown here. So we'll have at the full commission meeting from the last special policy meeting, we had warrant check requirements and SWAT GPO that passed. And then tonight we have travel and training requests. The request for a copy of Bureau of Communications and the revised ShotSpotter. So you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 motions to make it the full commission meeting. Does that sound right, Chair?
yeah,
All right.
yes, it does. Okay, and our next meeting, July 17th, 2024, is a Wednesday. Do you want to meet at 5:30 or 6? Is there, that would work? So we'll change that to 5:30.
Okay.
All right, we're good. So we will adjourn this meeting at 6:40 p.m. on June 17th.
Wow, this meeting is